He basically challenged me. He's like, you're not going to be able to get over that, having a panic attack on that road, until you can drive that road by yourself. And he was right. And it wasn't until my mom was dying from cancer, and it was that feeling of dread and fear and like, oh my God, I'm losing my mom, that overpowered my anxiety. And I started driving that road by myself quite a bit. And it was after she passed away that my dad was there in Hoopa all by himself, and we had lost all of the family photo albums in a trailer fire, all of my mom's stuff, all the memorabilia. This is after she died. We had lost all of that in the fire. My sister's trailer was gone. She was displaced from. Hi, I'm James Kerr. I'm a tattoo artist, musician, and a trauma survivor. Been on this healing journey for a long time now, and it's led me here talking to you. I enjoy talking about heavy stuff like life, death, spirituality, trauma, and ways to cope with trauma. But it's not all serious. I like to joke a lot too. Welcome to the Fire of Truth podcast. The conversation with Alex was enlightening, and it really kind of solidified a lot of the ways that I feel about apprenticeships, and it really kind of like almost took me off guard that I felt this way, but it made sense. And it also reminded me a lot of some of the experiences of me watching my father struggle and try to make it out of, like, try to bring us out of Hoopa where we were growing up, because he didn't have any work at all when we lived there in Hoopa. And so I remember there was this summer where he moved out of Hoopa, and he moved in with my aunt and my uncle in another part of California, and he went back to work there in where he used to work before we had moved to Hoopa, which is a place called Sunsweet, which is a pitted prune place. And my dad used to work there. A lot of my family members worked there. And so my dad left us that summer, and I remember when he did leave us, it was my mom allowed my sister and I to have a bit more freedom. So I remember that summer was probably one of the most fun summers I had, honestly, because Dad was gone, and let's go. Like the tyrant was gone, and Mom allowed us to be kids and go and play with friends and go to the river and go to the creek. And, we had a great summer that summer. And I know my dad was doing his best to get us to be able to afford to move out. Because the thing about where we lived in Hoopa, my father's parents, my grandma and grandpa, owned the place, owned this property with like 3 houses on it. And my father didn't have to pay rent at all. And so all they had to pay was property tax. So that kept him there, and understandably, like, we had a roof over our heads, and, he didn't have to pay for it, which is really kind of a good deal. The only problem is he paid for it with his mental health. And then we paid for it with the violence that we got from him when he was high and drunk and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't just when he was high and drunk, but that definitely brought it out a lot more. So watching him, like when Alex was talking about watching his dad go through his apprenticeship and humble himself and everything, that's what got brought up for me was, watching my dad do similar thing, like move away from us and try to like come up. And it didn't work out. I'm not exactly sure what happened. My dad ended up coming back, and it didn't work out. So, not everything's meant to be. And, I wonder what life would have been like if he hadn't moved us out, if he would have like been able to like find more peace within himself and maybe not have his turmoil reflected on the way he treated us so much. It's one of those things like, what if? And I know what if thinking isn't necessarily the healthiest way, but there's curiosity there, and curiosity is healthy, but definitely dwelling on the what ifs is not a good plan as far as like finding peace within my own life is concerned. Do like the idea of multiple universes, so there may be a universe where it did work out, and who knows, maybe I wouldn't be I'm probably not sitting in front of a camera in that universe, right? Another thing that really stood out to me in our conversation with Alex is, you know, his whole not wanting to go back to Vegas because it brings up all of that kind of, it's triggering for him because it brings up those kind of memories. I have very extremely similar experiences of, there's this highway between where I live now and where I grew up in Hoopa, Highway 299. And for the longest time, anytime I would go on Highway 299, I would have a panic attack. And because it was heading back to where all the trauma happened for me. And I would literally have to pull over and wait for it to pass before I was able to like continue down the road. And I couldn't even ride in a car. I remember being on tour in one of my previous bands, and we were heading down 299 in a caravan with another band. And I started having a full-blown panic attack, and I had to make the whole caravan pull over so I could get out of the van and kind of go wander around on the side of the road till I could catch my breath again. Oh man, and that was so embarrassing for me. And at that time, I don't think I knew what was going on. I hadn't connected the panic attack experiences with, being on that road. It's like was triggering me, like I was going back to the place where I grew up, where all that terrible stuff happened. I figured that out later, and then I was starting to be able to drive down that road after like years later, and but still had to pull over sometimes, and, like let the panic attack pass, and then get back in the car and then continue to drive. It happened at least once every time I go down that road to go visit my family there. And then it was my friend Jake, who was in the band with me. He was in all my bands that I've been in, basically, except for one. And even in that one, he's the one that hooked that one up, got me together with the guys there. Band called Blind Sight. He basically challenged me. He's like, you're not going to be able to get over that, having a panic attack on that road, until you can drive that road by yourself. And he was right. And it wasn't until my mom was dying from cancer, and it was that feeling of dread and fear and like, oh my God, I'm losing my mom, that overpowered my anxiety. And I started driving that road by myself quite a bit. And it was after she passed away that my dad was there in Hoopa all by himself, and we had lost all of the family photo albums in a trailer fire, all of my mom's stuff, all the memorabilia. This is after she died. We had lost all of that in the fire. My sister's trailer was gone. She was displaced from her home, but luckily the community in Hoopa had her back and had her set up with another place to live immediately. Thank you for that. I had made a photo album of pictures that I had, and I made copies, and these are pictures that my dad had taken, and I made a photo album of it, and I drove at night by myself over that highway, and no panic attacks. The drive to overcome that fear was more powerful than the fear itself, and I don't have panic attacks when I drive over that road anymore. Is that kind of exposure therapy, but my motivation to be exposed to it, to allow for neuroplasticity to rewire in modes of safety over that road. It had to be stronger, and wasn't until my mom was dying that I didn't find the motivation. Really, really heavy stuff, and I'm talking about it now. I'm feeling like I still feel the grief, and even though she passed away 15 years ago, my dad passed away a little over a year ago, and I think about them both every day, and I don't really have to drive over that highway anymore, so I guess maybe I will at some point. And another thing that kind of like what surprised me really is about how like I like treat my apprentices better than I got treated. And I think we all kind of do that at the shop now. And I know Alex's apprenticeship under his father was super fresh after his father got out of his apprenticeship and being treated like shit and all that kind of stuff like traditional apprenticeships were. I come from, and this is how I link it. I come from a place where my whole mission in life is breaking the cycle of abuse in my family line, and I bring that into the way I treat my apprentices too. And there's a stubborn streak in me where, like, I know people think I should be meaner sometimes or people take my kindness for weakness, and I'm pretty stubborn in being kind to people, and also with my apprentice. And maybe that's not always for the best, and maybe that doesn't always work out for the best, but it works out best for me because I, in a lot of ways, am afraid of my own anger. And because of the way my father's anger got out of control and violent and almost killed me and my sister multiple times. And I know he almost killed other people because of his anger. So I am afraid of my own anger, and I am kind of stubborn in that. Now, if I will sometimes snap, and I have had an argument or two, a yelling match with people before. That does happen. But I think that's kind of where that comes from. I am trying to treat my apprentice better than I had it. And I had it fairly, I don't know. I almost said I had it good, but no. There's some raw shit. I remember getting into a fist fight with my mentor, and he basically hit me in the head a couple times, and it was over a bottle of Jim Beam, and yeah, that wasn't very nice. But he fired me that night and then rehired me the next morning. I made it through my apprenticeship. But I'm never going to do that with any of my apprentices. Never. I don't even drink anymore, so that's not an issue. So I definitely am a big believer in breaking the trauma cycle, and that's my whole life mission. And I did that the way I raised my son, and I'm doing that with the way I apprentice my apprentices. Because it's way more exhausting for me to try to be an asshole than it is to just be myself. And that's what I hope I pass down. So, thank you for watching. Those are my takeaways. Stay tuned for the next episode.